Hello, and welcome to Witch Bitch, where we talk the real tea. And today we have Mary Lou on the show. This is really, really exciting, and we just another new guest. Like it's
Yeah.
always so like exciting for me when we have a new guest because I get to hear about your story, and also we, get to have new energy, new
Mm.
conversations. In our podcast, and it's just like so amazing every single time. So without further ado, let's just get into it. When we have a new guest, the question always is, or at least the first question always is, what is your awakening story? When did you realize that your life was more than matrix? And yeah, when did you see kind of through the veil that is put over all of our eyes?
Wow, that's such a big question because I don't even know where to start. But if I was to pinpoint an age or a time or anything like that, I would say I'd go back to when I was 18. Um, and can I just give you a little bit of a backstory about me of why
Yes.
and
Please
how?
do.
So
Yes.
I was born in Lebanon and came out to Australia when I was 10, and I was born in an Orthodox religion. And my mum always had a very strong connection to Jesus and to God and us going to church and living by those values. Um, and ironically, I went to a nun school in Lebanon. I went to a French nun school, um, which was Maronite, very close to kind of Catholic upbringing. But then a lot of my friends were also Muslim. So three very different um, ways of believing in God and carrying out, His word, basically.
Hmm.
And then we came out to Australia and started going to church here and that, but it just never felt right. And it was really quite toxic, to be honest with you. And my mum just went, nah, this is not aligned with what we believe in and how we practice things, so we're not coming anymore. Um, and kind of we stopped. And then at the age of 18, I started uni and kind of this becoming an adult.
Yeah.
Um, and I just always felt like there was something missing. And, I was just missing some sort of connection.
Mm.
Um, and so I started going to a lot of different churches. I learnt about Mormons. I learnt about, born again Christian, Jehovah Witness, you name it. And I researched it and I read about it and I learnt about it. And then I came across a book, and I'm trying to remember the lady's name now. Something Dawn, some Dawn someone. Anyway, it was just such a beautiful three-part book about this lady. And now, like looking back, I understand that she was a Reiki practitioner basically, but she was talking about um, the pain in her body, and that when she touched others and the healing she like passed on to others actually helped her with her pain. And I started digging into that. Now, having said that about my mum, though, my mum has always been very connected with spirit and connected to the other side, the realm. So she had that as well. So she wasn't just, religion and a cult is bad. In fact, she used to go to psychic churches. Her business is crystal wholesaling now. She uses crystals for healing. So she had that as well. So I've kind of been very blessed to grow up with that. And as an influence, kind of started, uh, you know, exploring and learning. Now, if I was to pinpoint, like, when did I awaken? Then, because I never felt like I fitted in. I was always different. I would hear something, but it was like, why is it like this? And
Yeah.
especially coming from my culture and growing up in a nun school, I was always in trouble. um, and I got the struck quite a bit as well. I remember back in those days. So I think, because of that, and then just because of the culture that I came to, and just that what I went through in those 8 years in Australia, from 10 to 18 in particular, I would say 18 is when it started, and
Hmm.
then it kind of went like this, and I would watch a movie like The Matrix and go, oh, that feels a bit like life. Like, I could see
Yeah.
things in movies, but I would say, like, my full blown awakening began when I had children 11, 12 years ago almost. Becoming a mum, I think, is just another level that I never thought I would experience. And I'm not sure whether we could without having it, but that's my experience anyway. Um, and then, the last 3 years and what's happened, and just that inner knowing. It's like, I don't know, there's nothing I watch right now. Every movie. I'm talking every single movie, including the Croods, like cartoons. We watch a lot of cartoons. I love the messages in cartoons, and I know that some people can be really controversial about them and the brainwashing. But see, again, I look at things in a different way, going, yeah, there's brainwashing. Can you see that, kids? Like, let's talk about that, you know, and really picking that apart. Um, you know, and the Croods, for example, and I keep on coming back to that because it got released when the pandemic started. And it was basically people, like the dad wanting to lock his family in the cave to keep them safe. Yeah? And the daughter, always the children that are saving the day, is the one that gets them out of that. And life is about living, not about being safe and staying locked up. And I just thought, oh my God, the message is so strong. And so I guess like you can talk about that next level of awakening and just that awareness, that hypersensitivity has probably exploded in the last 3 years. And I think it's just a journey, you know, since I was 18. But like it might have happened before that. I don't have that awareness of it in that way, but I think everything leads to that. I hope that answers that question.
Yes.
It's a big answer, I know, but it's like
Yeah, it does.
I wanted to make a comment because when you were talking about movies and the messages in it, I agree with you so strongly. I cannot. So okay, first of all, I've gotten Netflix recently in the past month or so because I don't really have much source of entertainment in my. I currently live in a tent with no Wi-Fi, so Netflix is like. So I download the movies and stuff when I have access to internet, and then when I'm in my tent, that's like what I watch. And it's actually a really beautiful way to do it because I'm in control of what I'm watching. I'm not just like scrolling through social media. But there was two movies that you were talking about, the Croods, and one of them is called The Sea Beast. It's on Netflix.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yes, it's all about history and how history is false. Like they literally are saying in the movie, like how history has been rewritten and it's completely false what we're told, and we have to burn all of our books, all of our history books, because we don't know what's true or not anymore. And it's literally a children's cartoon movie, like it's an animated movie, and it's so beautiful. I cried, I laughed, I wanted to hug all the characters, and it was seriously like so insightful. And anytime that movies are like that, it just brings me like affirmation of like, no, I believe the right thing. Like I'm not making this crap up. Like this is real stuff, you know. And another movie like that was also not but more of an adult movie, which was The Glass Onion. That was weird. So it's a new movie that's come out with all these huge names, and the movie.
Yes, I looked at that the other day. I haven't. I saved it to my list.
It's so strange because it actually has COVID in, or you know, like we all know, the pandemic in the movie, and it talks about it, and it's about all these celebrities during lockdown coming to a rich person's island, private island, and having a party, I swear to God. And then they're talking about like other things that they're like, yeah, okay, it's not technically in the movie, the context isn't around anything to do with the pandemic, but they just replace it with something else. And they literally are saying, you haven't tested this, we can't put this out. Like, what?
Oh my God, I just got goosebumps. I haven't watched that yet. Isn't that unreal? And you know, there's two ways we can look at that, isn't it? From a psychology perspective, there's two ways. And this is why I kind of sometimes talk about there's no wrong or right. There actually is no wrong or right. Exactly. It's about the perception that we have on it, and coming from our experience, coming from our own beliefs, coming from our own journey. You know, so there's some people in my circles that are like, no, Disney's evil, we've got to take it off, don't watch that crap, don't stop watching these movies. And so on one hand, there are people watching it that are being programmed to accept what transpires in life as normal. And then there are those that, like you, just then that see it, or like me, that are seeing it and going, isn't this amazing that they're telling us and we can actually talk about this
Yeah.
and get more awakened from this? Like
Yes.
it's right there in our face, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even take Avatar.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh, you know, and do you know the theme? And so there's something like in my brain that kind of just always looks for patterns and sequences and things. And the pattern that I'm seeing in every single movie, so I don't know about the Glass Onion and if there's any children in it, but it would be interesting to see whether they'll introduce them for whoever saves the day. Because in every movie, I feel like there's a pattern of the kids saving the day,
Yeah.
the children's intelligence, the children's what's the word I'm looking for?
Their natural abilities.
Yeah, they're like that higher power. It's always the
Yeah.
children saving the day. Whether it's in unfortunate events, it's the children doing it. Whether it was in Stranger Things, whether it's in the cartoons, you know, like the Beast one you just said, like the Croods, Avatar. It's always the children that are using their wisdom, their wisdom, and their knowing, their intuition, and they're following. You know, they're rebelling. And then, you know, we talk about things like, you know, this is a big topic, you know, like autism or a lot of these labels. And the way that I kind of see that is these beautiful children, higher beings that are coming through on a different frequency. And they're like, malfunctioning, zapping like that, right? And then us on this planet going, oh, you know, they've got this issue because they're not fitting into this hole and they're not behaving this way. But so we're bringing them down into that lower frequency so they can fit in rather than us changing the environment so that it's a high frequency where then it matches theirs and then they're okay. You know, I've had friends argue with me and look, you know, again, there's no right or wrong. It's all about different experiences and different parts of the journey, you know. But like I had someone say to me, that food does not impact your behavior and being autistic. Okay, I've seen it in my own child though, from a very young age when he had colour, and this was by mistake. I gave him colour in his Panadol. I don't know why in Panadol at the age of 2, you know, they have colour in Panadol. But anyway, I bought the wrong Panadol and he had a high fever and I gave him Panadol. And he literally was sitting on the floor within 10 minutes, banging his head on the wall. Yeah. And I was so grateful that my parents were there, that my in-laws were there, they witnessed it. And they were like, what the hell? And then see, there were certain foods that he would have. And I'm not even going to call them food, but you know, like the Pop Dog juice. He had that once at a party and within 10 minutes, off the charts, and that night just doesn't go to sleep. And then people would call me that I am, you know, I'm the fun police. Like I kill all the fun for my child because I don't let them have this crap. And I don't know when society started associating that with fun.
Yes.
But this is the matrix. This is how it keeps you stuck, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, there's so many
and
layers
you're
to it,
questioning
isn't
reality. That's the thing. Like these people are questioning reality because they see the effect happening in front of their eyes.
Yes.
Like you were saying, Marilou, you saw what happened to your son when he ate those types of foods, and you didn't deny it. You were like, look what's happening in front of your face.
Yeah.
And you acted accordingly. But people are like, oh, you know, no, it can't be the food, because they're denying reality. They're denying what they're seeing in front of their face actually happening.
Also, what I think also that comes back to is their values. Like health for me and my own journey. So when my son was 6 months old, I dropped him and I lost all senses in my arm. And I went to a rheumatologist where I found out that I actually had celiac.
Right.
And so my body wasn't working properly at all. And it explains so much amongst my journey as well, right? So what a beautiful awakening that was, because I started having to read labels, you know, and in that first 6 months I ballooned eating all the gluten-free stuff off the shelf. I actually felt sicker than better. And then, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm like, what's this number? What's natural flavors? I even called one company once and going, what does natural flavor mean in your packaging? They couldn't answer that.
Yeah.
And so again, I went down this rabbit hole of, you know, following those breadcrumbs of what is food and what do we call food, and so people look at me shockingly that my children are 9 and 11 and never had McDonald's.
Yeah.
Or I don't even think they've had KFC. I think they've just had Subway with their dad. But, like I just kind of go, and I'm not all like, no, you're never going to have that. At their age now, I say, you know what, babes, this is your choice, your body. You won't have it around me. I won't buy it for you. I won't contribute to that. It's your choice. If you want to go and try it, that's for you. And you're responsible for your body. And, kind of speaking from that sense about it. But what I think that comes to is people's experiences, right? So like someone who might give their child a food and then their child reacts, but they've got that cognitive dissonance about it and they don't want to see that reality. It's because their values with, how can I say this? It's actually harder for them. And like their own experience of what's happened, it's easier for them to just deal with that rather than the process of making food from scratch or not going to McDonald's, for example, when their children are really hungry.
Yeah.
You know what I
So
mean?
the
Like there's
convenience
that.
factor.
It's a convenience factor, but like, I think for me, I just look at everything from a trauma lens. Like, depending on what that person's been through and what effect it's going to have on their nervous system. And yes, to some people, it might look like laziness. And it can be. Like, that's a huge part of our conditioning in this matrix is let's be lazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't even want to go out to restaurants anymore. We just get Uber Eats. We can't even friggin' pick up our phone anymore because it's on our watch now. Like it's just like society and the things that we buy into has conditioned us to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it comes back to there's not that wrong or right, but what I just hope in this conversation as well is that people who are listening might go, oh, is this actually really serving me?
Yeah.
Is this serving me? Is me ignoring that reality in front of me because it's easier for me to just do that? Is that actually serving me? And get real, get honest with yourself. Because, it might be serving you in that moment to go and give your child McDonald's, for example, over making them a home-cooked meal. And if that becomes a habit over term, long-term, how is that serving you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this because that is tuning into yourself. And, that's being at one with your body, because not only is it about serving yourself, it's also about serving your body, which then serves yourself. Because if you're like eating McDonald's or eating, whatever label of food, I don't like labels for food, but just, potentially damaging foods. If you're eating those foods regularly, it does hurt your body over time, and then you're left down the in the long road, like being like, oh man, looking back at my life, I wish I didn't eat all that junk. For me, I'm very grateful because I was raised with mum. Like, I was always the kid that had like the healthy snacks in my lunchbox, or like the rip-off healthy version of all the crappy like sugary fruit roll-ups. I would have the real fruit, like the actual fruit puree roll-ups and stuff.
Yeah, like my boys get lollipops, but they get the honey lollipops.
Yeah.
Like it's just honey, made into a lollipop. Yeah.
Yeah, like I was that kid, and I remember as a kid where I would be like, oh man, but I'm so grateful that it happened, and that because it actually did set me up for now I'm entering my 20s, and it's exciting, but I'm an adult now and I need to look after myself, and that foundation, those building blocks that my parents set up for me as a kid, always teaching me about MSG and the numbers in food. Like, I always grew up looking at the numbers on the back of the packaging, because my mum and dad taught me to do that. So I've had this good setup in my life of eating food, and also that mixed with the fact that food where I live right now is incredibly expensive, and I don't want to buy it all the time, so I'm making my own food. And I also have access to markets and fresh produce 10 minutes away from. So I definitely am lucky in the fact that I have really good access to organic whole foods, and I eat most of my diet is that. And I've also decided to go gluten free, and I'm again lucky that I have my mum buy the gluten free stuff, because like substitutes at least, like eat gluten free but
Ridiculous.
don't eat like the gluten free breads and the gluten free like substitutes, because
They're
it's
worse.
even worse. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
even worse.
they can be, absolutely. Hey, can I ask you something? So, as a young person, um, did you go through, with your parents teaching you that from a young age, did you go through a phase, especially that coming of, the teens, or that coming of age kind of part in your life, the in between, where you wanted to rebel against that? I'm curious.
Oh, yeah. I I remember this was in high school for me. I was around in year 8 and year 9. I was also going through some pretty big traumas, and I was going through like a lot of depressing emotions. So it wasn't just wanting to rebel against my parents. I think it was more of a like, I don't care. I'm gonna eat what I want. Um, I actually I actually ate like a lot of cheese and bacon rolls. That was like my favorite food, and I had a lot of I think I had lot more Maccas than I'm usually like that I've ever eaten in my life was in high school, because I could literally just get off the train and have McDonald's if I wanted. Like there
Yeah.
was nothing stopping me. And I also just didn't really, it just wasn't really a huge focus. Like food was the thing that made me feel so much better. And, like I didn't care if I was meant to have it or not. It was like, I'm sad, I'm depressed, this is going to make me feel better, I'm going to eat it.
And that's
I
my
don't care
point
about it.
right there about there's no right or wrong, right?
Yeah,
There's no right or wrong. And
yeah,
it really, and what I love with Claudia, like with you and teaching them that, and that's what I feel like, because we're starting to go through that. And right now it is quicker to go and buy cheese and bacon roll, but I still make the decision to buy it from Baker's Delight that's been baked that morning, rather than from Woolies with the 100 numbers on that packet. Yeah, so it's still like not the best foods, but it's the best of the worst, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And there's no, but like you, Claudia, what I hope is that we've built that foundation in their early years, in their blueprint years. They go through this phase, like what you just said, Julia, and and we need to allow our children to go through those phases. We can't. I actually did a live in my group the other day about. Can I swear on this show at all?
Yes. It's literally in the name of the show.
I don't know. Just making sure, because my kids are always like, "Oh, you just swore," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, I take that back." But it actually makes sense to swear then.
Yeah.
But I honestly, like, my book title is seriously going to be, "We're going to fuck our children up anyway,"
Yeah.
right? And who are we to stop them from having these experiences? Because we project so much of our own traumas that we've worked through, or stuff that's triggering and coming up for us, and so therefore we want to protect our children from having it. But I love what you just shared, Juliet, because it comes back to, my mum gave me this foundation, I went through this and I did that, but now look at what I'm choosing, and you're coming back to tuning into self,
yeah,
because you had those foundations to begin with. And
yeah,
I love that. I love that. And this is my wish, to be honest, to everybody out there. This is my wish, is for children in particular to have that from a very young age. And this is what I say to a lot of kids I work with. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have shit happen in your life. Shit will happen. In fact, life is shit. And our job is here to sprinkle our magic and make it better. Yeah? But we don't give our children those tools when they're younger. And then this is how I kind of explain it. It's a little sprout, our children, like we are born as a little sprout, and then we grow and we grow and we grow. And then, we get all these experiences or whatever. Now, if we don't have tools, we'll end up growing in this big onion. And this is why they call it midlife crisis, is because we hit this age in our 40s mainly, and then that onion can't grow anymore. And then we have to peel back and unlearn, and oh my god, the tears that comes from all of that, right? And the pain. So with that little sprout, why can't we give it the tools so that as it's growing, it doesn't have to become this big, ugly, difficult thing to unpeel? We just give it the tools And if we can do that with all our children, so give them those basic, those foundational stuff, and so that when, you know, they go through their stuff, they can come back to those foundations at whatever age it may be. And you know what, Juliet, yes, you're going to be 20 soon, no more at 19, like teen, you know. I don't know why teenagers think, I don't know why 18 is an adult thing, because you're still a teen in my opinion. And really,
I
you're not
agree.
even fully an adult until your brain's grown at the age of 25.
Yeah.
And for some boys, I think it's even more. I've got 2 boys, yeah? But, you know, it's those foundations that we kind of come back to, and that we build, and kind of, you know, you're going to go through that cycle again, but then you'll have those tools. And you'll build on those tools again and again, and, you know, and then you'll get to your mum's age and my age, and you'll continue to go through those tools. And I believe that we'll go through this other cycle, and when we hit our 60s, it's another kind of cycle.
Yeah.
Of, you know, and bringing those tools in. But the thing that saddens me the most is when I see people, you know, that are in their 60s and 70s and haven't awakened to anything. And they haven't learned to tune into themselves. They've lived in that matrix. They've been, you know, I just do whatever the government tells me, or whatever my teacher tells me, or whatever the doctor tells me, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is a bit sad, but again, I go back, there's no right or wrong, and this is their journey, and this is what they've come to contribute and learn. Because if we didn't have those people that are not awakened, we wouldn't see that contrast, and we wouldn't be then as awakened.
Yeah.
I know it sounds really weird, right? Because we want everybody to be awakened. We want everybody to be aware, and we want everybody to be their best of best everything.
Yeah.
But everybody's on that journey for themselves, you know?
And I think too, it's important, Marilou, as parents, to when we are raising those sprouts that you were talking about, that we have trust in ourselves enough that we've given them the foundation, so we are aware that we've given it to them and that they are actually receiving it. And in turn, when we trust ourselves that we're doing that, we can trust the child to make the right choices, even at the times when we feel from the outside looking in that they might be struggling or failing or
100%.
making mistakes, that we have that ability to trust that we've raised them right, and that eventually they're going to balance themselves out and start choosing the right thing for
I've got
themselves.
to say, I've really sucked at that recently.
Yeah,
and I've
right.
become very aware of that for myself. It's like, you know, because I am going through that tween stage where it's coming of age and it's quite challenging. But then we've had a lot of changes in our life here as well,
Yeah.
you know, impacted by the lockdowns and everything else that's happened. But we've literally, you know, like that list of the top 10 stresses in life, like, you know, loss of job and moving house and blah, 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 like separation and
Yeah.
all of it. I feel like we've had 5 or 6 happen to us in the last 2 years, like personally, us in my family. And so that's a lot for the boys, you know. And my oldest just really, I mean, he's bloody amazing, that kid. He's the best teacher on the planet, I swear. And he's come here to crack me open like never before. I thought I was so cool and I had it all, and I was going to be like this amazing mother because I knew all the things and I ticked all the lists. What a fucking joke that was. But he taught me, wow. You know, he continues to do that, and I love it. I love it because, you know, I had a moment not long ago, you know, maybe late last year, where I kind of was like, oh my God, is this how I raised you? And I went, oh, Marilou, come back, you know, like seriously. And exactly what you said, just trust that what you've done, what I've done in those early years will pay off. And, you know, and again, it's like what I said, it's about coming through that journey. And that's why I've been having so many conversations around who are we to stop our children from going through their own experiences, no matter what labels we want to put on them, you know. And this is just at the moment behavioral stuff, like what's going to happen when, you know, sex, drugs and rock and roll kind of comes in. You know, like that's a whole other level of harnessing the mother within. You know, and my reactions to that, and, you know, my own growth journey within that. And I can already like see what the triggers may be. And all I can do is really keep on working on me. The more I work on me, and the more that, you know, I had this big awakening last year I was at a course in Perth, and we were going through a lot of like mindset stuff and spiritual stuff. But I kind of went, oh my God, sovereignty is such a buzzword. And what does it mean to actually be sovereign? And I worked in an indigenous community, and everything's like we're sovereign beings, and we own the land. And whilst I respect all of that, for me, what sovereignty actually really means, like I had this big, I don't know, thump in the head. Sovereignty means nobody else controls how you feel.
Yeah.
And then the actions that you take. Sovereignty actually means that you can call me a bitch, or you can say I'm wacko, or you can say whatever about me, and I choose how I respond to that. Coming back to I choose that right now I'm going to sit and cry and kick my feet on the ground, but then I'm going to pick myself up and do something different. I choose. It's such a big thing, right?
Yeah.
And again, I come back, imagine teaching our children that from a very young age. We don't have
Yeah.
to say to them, hey, this is how to be sovereign and let's learn about sovereignty. It's actually just taking responsibility and coming back to, how am I choosing to show up?
Yeah.
How do I contribute to this world? And how am I going to respond to this? And it's so powerful. It really is. And if anybody says to me, oh, but their brain's not fully developed. No, I get that. I get that, how the frontal cortex, like frontal lobe
Yeah.
works. And I get all of that. But this is what I'm saying about the tools that you plant. This is what I'm saying about these tools that you give. They're still going to go through their own shit. They're still going to be growing as that onion. But they will get to that stage where they have the tools and they can apply them.
Yes.
And I've tested this. My children are my guinea pigs. I'm my own guinea pig. It works. It really works. But we have to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And then once we've implanted those tools that you're talking about, which is basically realizing that the world is a mirror, and that when we're looking out into the world, we're actually seeing ourselves. And when you're aware of that, and being aware of that as a child, I think is such a gift to give our children. That 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 consciousness, that awareness that we're implanting into them as young adults or young children, that coupled with the trust that we would have for our children to make the choices that are right for them, even if they make mistakes, even if they go off the rails, because like we said, life is messy.
But they need to make those mistakes.
They do
need to,
learn.
just like we needed to make the
Yes.
mistakes that we made, yeah?
Yes, 100%. And I think that's another part of the matrix that we need to be aware of, is that we're taught, well, I was taught when I was growing up, that mistakes were bad. That,
100%.
that you had to be,
shame
yes,
and guilt about the
yes.
mistake. Oh.
Yeah, and that striving for perfection is the way of life. Like you have to
Yeah.
strive for perfection in life to get anywhere, to get a job, or to be, employable, or whatever it is. And not knowing as a child and growing up into an adult that is such a chain around my life. Like it's really restrictive, having to try and be perfect all the time and not make mistakes. And so I think realizing that and letting your children know that and living it yourself, because children learn by modeling too, that they watch you and how you live your life and how you behave, and they model that.
Yeah, 100%.
And so,
see, yeah, no, 100%. And see,
yeah,
it's not only that though, Claudia, isn't it? Like our system is built so that we lose in touch with our intuition, and we
yeah,
don't listen. We're taught about all this brain, but then we're not taught about this brain, and we're
yeah,
not taught about our gut brain, and the intuition and the soul that speaks to us. And children have that very strongly when they're born, and then over
yeah,
time, and especially when they, Waldorf Steiner talks about the age of 9 when you the coming of age, which is a beautiful thing. But then it's almost like a detachment from that soul, from that intuition, because it is about fitting in. Like
yeah,
it naturally happens in us anyway, and we need to give our children the space to do that. And I believe, like for me, my role with my boys is always bringing them back to, how does that feel in your body?
mm,
How does that make you feel? You know, how can you do that in a healthy way? Like express anger, express jealousy, express all these emotions that are neither good or bad, but they're just there to show us, hey, I'm jealous of my brother's new car. What am I actually like? Why do I have my missing out lens on? You know, and just actually understanding that some people just have certain personas in the way that they are, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, how do we foster like whatever's going to serve them?
Yeah.
You know, but like we're built, a society is built that you don't trust your body, you trust the doctor. I mean, and I'm speaking from
It's
this
so
from
true.
experience. You know, like when I birthed my first boy, oh my gosh, I thought I was so prepared. I did my hypnobirthing classes and I had my list already. And oh my gosh, Claudia, like I laugh at myself back then, you know, but I had to go through that, honestly. You know, Ruben came 6 weeks early, took 4 days to come out, and now I
Wow.
understand why. It's because my body just couldn't, you know, hold him anymore, but he
Yeah.
wasn't ready. But and so, you know, understanding that whole birth trauma and how all that happened, and our agreement with that, and our um, journey and our healing that needed to be done around that, and continues actually to come up. Like again, I thought recently, I was like, oh my god, I thought I dealt with his birth trauma, but I'm seeing some stuff coming up that relates back to that. And
Yeah.
this is what I'm saying. It's. Do you know what I say? Personal development, or you know, spiritual healing, or this awakening, is like having a shower or eating a meal.
Yeah.
You don't do it once and expect never to stink again. You know, you don't go, I'm going to shower today and that's it now. I'm not going to shower for the whole year. It doesn't work like that. It's an ongoing process, right? We need to shower every day. Otherwise, you know, bits of our body starts hurting. That's what I'm telling my boys right now. Because boys at the age of 9 onwards, I'm finding they don't want to shower.
No.
So, you know, it's about, I love it. I love it. Tuning into self is the most perfect topic, Juliet, that you could have talked about. Because honestly, that's really what it comes back to. It
Yeah.
really does. Like everything else is outside of you, and you're giving your power away to that. And if
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can come back to that center, and it's like tuning into myself, you know, one of the most powerful questions I'm finding out with kids at the moment, especially when they get into he said this and they did, you know, and that fighting kind of that you know, bitchy playground kind of
Yeah.
attitude. It's like, well, how are you choosing to show up in this? What's your contribution to this?
Yeah.
It's that simple. And if adults can ask themselves that, because kids do it really well and they move fast, you know, kids, that's what I love about them. There's not too many onion layers to peel back.
Yeah.
Don't wait until you know, like get onto it early on. Um, yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, that's my rant.
You can rant to us any day.
You can tell I'm quite passionate about it, hey. And it's not easy. It really ain't easy. You know, it's not easy. And another thing I think that it's worth mentioning, because it's come up a lot in conversations recently with other mums and even for myself, I've just learnt to process it and transcend it quite quickly now, because I am doing the work all the time on me. But drop that heavy baggage of shit, of guilt and shame that you carry around with you, that just weighs you down and again does not serve you. You know,
Yeah.
like that guilt of, and even if people are awakening now to things they shouldn't have done, yeah?
Yeah.
Drop that shame and guilt, because guess what? At that time, that's what you thought was right.
Yes.
And when you know better, you can do better. And if you can get through that cognitive dissonance and wake up to, oh, actually, I'd rather not go to McDonald's tonight. Maybe I can grab baked beans and toast, or I don't know, a different alternative that still may not be the healthiest. It's not organic, but hey, like right now, I'm not buying organic food. I can't have access to good quality organic food, and that the boys would eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have to adjust. I just have to adjust. You know, like I gave them a Slurpee not long ago. They had their first Slurpee last year. And
What
everything in
they
my
think
body
of
was
it?
like, you know, they wanted one every week. So I would be like, okay, once a week is okay. Listen to your body. And guess
Yeah.
what? The other, like, what was it? Only a couple of weeks ago, we had a really hot day. I'm like, do you want to stop in for a Slurpee? Oh, mum, nah, too much sugar. It made my body feel crap.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a 9 and 11-year-old.
Yes.
My
Awesome.
9-year-old at the age of 5 was able to turn around to his grandmother and say, you know, he stuffed his face, she buys him all these creamy biscuits. and I shouldn't say they stuffed their face. He ate like 3 or 4, and then his grandmother's like, "Oh, yeah, have more," you know. And I don't know what it is about grandparents. They think that feeding them junk is a sign of love.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes that's their passage, that's their right. You know, but I also kind of just plant things in their ear about love and food and all of that. And anyway, Logan actually turned around to his grandmother and goes, "No, Grandma, my tummy's had enough actually. I think I'll stop now."
Yes.
And I just
Awesome.
wouldn't ask for anything more. You know, talk about tuning into yourself. And this is what I'm saying. The earlier you teach him, and that doesn't mean he didn't say to me the other day, "Hey, Mum, I think one day I might want to try cheeseburger from McDonald's." You know, and I'm like, "Yeah, that's okay. You can do that. I won't
And
be
how,
buying it for you."
Marilou, how wonderful is it that your son tells you that? He comes to you and he feels confident enough in your relationship to be able to say to his mum, who he knows doesn't want him to have McDonald's,
I
but
never even actually saw it
he
that
knows
way.
he can
Yeah.
say to you, "I think I might try it." I mean, that's amazing in itself.
Actually, thank you for that. I didn't even realize that because Logan can be a people pleaser, and I
Yeah,
can see that in him. So thank you. I didn't even actually think about that. Thank you.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
for
mean, one of
him,
the things that, yeah.
for him in his perspective as a child, coming to his mother, who, you know, is the adult in his life, the one that he wants to please, the one that he looks up to, the one that loves him. He feels comfortable enough to say to you, I would never have said that to my mum. Like, there
Yeah.
was just no way I would go to my mum and say something that I knew she didn't agree with,
Isn't that,
because it
thank
would
you.
impact
Thank
my
you,
life in a
actually.
negative way, you
Yeah, because
know?
we do want to please our parents, especially from this
Yes,
age onwards. You know, it's all about pleasing our parents, and that's why children do go behind their parents' back to do stuff.
yes,
I guess you know something, like I am so blessed with my mum. We clash a lot, my mum and I, and you know she's caused a lot of my trauma. She knows that, and
yes,
we talk about it very openly. She's my bestest friend. I friggin' love that woman to bits. She's my hero and she's my inspiration at the same time. And I know the reason she's created that trauma for me is because of the way that I chose to see things and what my needs were and what her values were, you know, clashed. And
yeah,
so it's so beautiful when we understand our parents in that way. She absolutely did the best that she can. I mean, and
yes,
you know my mother's background, and I won't share that because that's her story. She's amazing, absolutely amazing what she's come through.
yeah,
Um, you know, but you know, she was always anti-drugs, anti-alcohol. My mum never really drank, never smoked. And, you know, I grew up
yeah,
in a culture where alcohol, I mean, alcohol is big in every culture, really. But, you know, arak at the table with every meal in Lebanese culture was always there. And, you know, the shisha, the smoking, whatever. So she grew up very anti a lot of that. But
yeah,
then when we came to Australia or whatever, like, I remember she said, "I know you're smoking." So my grandmother gave me my first cigarette when I was 8. And she thought by
wow,
doing that, I would hate it. And I actually loved it. But you know, I used to roll all her cigarettes for her and put them in a packet. The whole freaking point, my grandma missed the point, seriously, because the whole point of rolling a cigarette was that you take ages to roll it and then you get over your craving. Well, no,
yeah,
she rolled them all. I'm having a healthy cigarette, and she'd stuff them all in a packet and have that one after the other, right? So anyway, and I liked it. So I would sneak off and have her cigarettes. Like I'd roll whatever for her and I'll sneak a few for me and I'll go smoke. And my mum said, "I know you're smoking. I don't want you to go sneak out and do it. I don't like it, but you have it in my house, so you're not rushing having that cigarette, which is more harmful to you."
yeah,
Or, you know, at the age of 16, she's like, "I know you and your friends are going to go out and get drunk. I don't want you to doing it in the park and getting into trouble. You can do it downstairs,
yeah,
you know, and be safe." So my mum was one of the mums who my friends would come to and ask for the pill.
yeah, right,
You know, my mum's like, "Go to your parents about that," you know, and my mum was
yeah,
the first to know when you know, the first time I had sex. Like, she was my first person to go to. So maybe that also is generationally going on to my children, and I didn't even
yeah,
realize it. So thank you for pointing that out. And I hope
yeah,
that continues, because my wish is just like I could go to my mum if I was ever in trouble, you know, I want my boys to come to me. And
yeah,
you're right, if he's comfortable to say, "Hey, mum, I'm going to go have McDonald's one day," even though I know you don't like it.
yeah,
You know, I hope then he'll be able to come to me and say, "Oh shit, I knocked a girl up. Touch wood, I hope not." But you know, or whatever.
yes,
Like, you know, these big things, because this shit can happen.
yeah,
You know, and we have to deal with them. And you know, I think the biggest thing as parents is to not make them about us.
that's right, because it's their life. I mean, that's something that's kind of been in my face since Juliet left.
Oh, I
Um,
can only imagine. I don't want to even think about that moment for me.
is that, there's been the hole that's been left from her presence, like, because we were together every day, and we would talk every day, and we do still talk, but it's not nearly what it was when she was living at home. And it's left this gaping hole that now I'm faced with, okay, so I'm with myself now, because I've got two boys now, my husband and my son. The female element has left. So I'm now looking at that hole in my life and thinking, all right, I don't want to fill it with, food or
Yeah,
or alcohol, or, I don't want to fill it with that. How am I going to deal with that emptiness in my life now? And I
yeah,
want to fill it with something that's going to bring me joy and happiness.
yeah.
And so that, see, that at each stage of life with our children is going to bring us something different.
Exactly, and it's a learning. This is what I was saying before. Like, we're always evolving, we are always growing. We don't stop.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing that we're talking about today is awareness. Because to
Yes.
me, awareness is 50% of a problem or an issue or a discomfort being solved. That's
Yeah.
50% you've solved it because you brought awareness to it, and now you can go, oh, I have this emptiness in my life because Juliet's left. And that's not for Juliet to take on that guilt for
No.
leaving, because she's leaving to go live her life and experience what
Yes.
the world
It's a
offers,
natural
right?
progression.
It's
Yeah.
such a natural progression, but then isn't it a beautiful thing that you can come back and go, what is my heart, what is my soul, what do I need,
Yes.
what can I create in my life to not even really replace that, because you can never replace that,
No.
but it creates something different, and it's a journey, and and that's evolution for me. That's
Yes.
growth. Whereas, in the past, when I used to get into my anxious self, I'd be like, oh my god, and yeah, I would be like, scrambling to either just fill it with meaningless connections, like just
Yes.
be busy, 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 busy. But then when awareness sets in, you go, actually, no, that's not. It's not fulfilling me. It's not. How is this making life better? How is this
Yeah,
serving me?
exactly.
I know it's such a coaching thing. How does this serve you? But it's so powerful for me. How is this serving me?
Yeah.
You know?
And you have to
So
have
it's
enough
beautiful.
love. Yeah, and you have to have enough love for yourself. Like, you have to be in that space of, I want something that's going to serve me, because I've seen a lot of people who aren't in that space. They don't want to look at something that's good for them. Their conditioning, or the way they've raised themselves, or the way their parents have raised them, whatever it is in that self-sabotage mode. So I
Actually, can
think,
I just say something to that? I don't think it's just the way. I think, again, it's a societal thing. And can
yeah,
I just share this with the audience, whether they've heard it before or not, I don't know. But I'm just going to share it because it was a huge boom for me on my own mental health.
yeah,
Um, it's called secondary gain. And
yeah, right,
society keeps us stuck in that secondary gain, right? And unconsciously, we keep on going there because when we're playing victim and when we're playing, you know, everybody has different roles that we play at times, and it's really beautiful to be aware of those roles. So
yeah,
I'll just share my own experience, and if this helps anybody else, I hope it does. But I did anxiety really, really well. And anxiety for me was that my mum would drop everything and come and be by my side. Now, she's a very
yeah,
beautiful, busy woman. She's got a very awesome business that's her baby, and that's what makes her shine and put her light out in the world. But she gets quite consumed with it. And then when I would be really sick and couldn't get out of bed and I'd be so anxious, she would drop everything and come and be by my side. So that was the
yeah,
only time she had time for me, unconsciously on both sides. So I would get anxious and I would go in this downward spiral, and cognitive behavioral therapy really helped me see that. And then my coaching and NLP training really brought it together and helped me embody it. And again, it was when I had my baby. So I had to go through the deepest, darkest postnatal depression and anxiety. Like, I got to a point, Claudia, I used to think women who drove their kids into a lake and killed themselves and their babies were the most selfish bitches on the planet.
yeah,
And I had to go through that journey to actually understand those women and what was psychologically going on for them, because I got there.
yeah,
And it was not easy, and I was like, holy cow, did I have to look at myself hard in the mirror? because I wasn't about to take my life and my children's life, but I got to the point of understanding how that could happen.
Yeah.
Because life just felt so bleak, right? But when I had the awareness that I was doing this pattern, because mum would drop everything for me and it started becoming quite frequent, everything changed for me.
Yeah, right.
So who in that person's life is being the rescuer, the people pleaser, or the rescuer coming in, rescuing them, validating, anchoring that feeling for them, where they stay on that treadmill of being a victim and not wanting to change their life.
Yeah.
Because I really, really, and again, this is not textbook stuff. Yes, I've done a psychology degree. Yes, I've done NLP training. Yes, I've done coaching. Yes, I've done all these different modalities. Put all that shit aside. This is my life experience. I'm talking from my experience and walking this and having embodied this, because embodiment is the overall thing for this, right? So once you feel it and you've walked it and you know it, you can't go back.
Yeah. Yes, so true.
Yeah, and I just think, you know, for those people that are stuck there and don't want to see it different, I'm like, well, that's serving them. That's actually serving them. You know, we go to, well, how is that serving you? Well, look at where it's serving them. Is their husband, you know, are people bringing them meals? Is their husband coming early from work? The list can go on. Whatever it may be, there's a secondary gain there.
Yeah, I've been in that cycle myself. I've been in
all go
cycles.
through it. I catch myself going through it, but it's again that awareness, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And getting back to that self-love, it's when you become aware of those cycles in your life, because I think what happens is it becomes so uncomfortable for you. Maybe the person who was feeding that codependency in you has left your life, or you know, whatever it is, that you become aware of it. Like for me, a huge change in my life came when my father died, and that created a massive that triggered the awakening for me. I mean, our viewers who've watched us from the beginning know that story in my life. It triggered a massive self-reflection, and because having him no longer in my life, because he was, like you were talking about, he was my hero. He was the person that was always advocating for me. His energy in my life was like a blanket of security. And then when he left, and not left, when he passed, because he's never left, he's with me all the time. But when he passed, his physical being was no longer here. It changed the dynamic in my life. And I had to figure out why I was so sad and what the attachments to him meant to me and all of that stuff. And then there was a cascading of events that happened because he was no longer in my life protecting me. There were vultures in my world that were always laying there in wait, and when he left, they attacked. And that was a massive wake-up call to me as well, because they were people that I trusted. And so I had to get to a point in my life where I loved myself enough to let go of those attachments with those people so that they were no longer hurting me, and to allow my life to crumble in such a way that I was able to, like a cocoon, come out and be a different person. Yes.
Oh, I'm getting goosebumps everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know your story a little bit, and it's a beautiful growth, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a hard one.
It's so
A very, very hard one.
It's so hard. It is so hard, you know. We could go on for ages. I'm just aware of the time, but you know, like maybe that's what, you know, we talk about another time, about that self-love and attachment.
Yes.
And the
meaning please, that would be juicy.
So Juliet, when you download that topic, give me a call.
I will.
Do you have anything you want to say on this, Juliet, before we go? We've got 6 minutes.
No, we're at 10:30, Mum.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, but I don't have anything to say anyway. I think you guys said it all.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, I have one more
Yeah.
thing to say is Juliet, please keep shining, keep living your life.
Yeah.
Please know that there's a whole big community out there that loves and supports you, even though we may not always be present in your life. Don't grow up like the adults who just think they can do it all and they have to prove themselves. Um,
Mm.
there's a lot in achieving, but there's nothing in being an overachiever. You've got nothing to prove. I'm just saying
Yeah.
this out there. I don't even know whether you do or not. This is a download. And this
Yeah.
is to any young person out there that's watching, because you are just such an inspiration to many without that pressure on your shoulders. It's just who you are, okay? And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for stepping into the light and doing this with your mum, who's the most beautiful person I know. Um, Thank you for having me here. Thank you for just holding this space. And um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just so grateful right now. I really am. I
Thanks
really
for
am.
coming on, Mary Lou, and saying yes to us. We're
Oh my
really, really
gosh! Like
pleased.
you messaged me an hour after I set an intention about being on other people's show, and now I've got
Awesome.
2 more happening in the next couple of weeks.
Yay.
They all reached out to me, which I love. I just love how energy works, eh?
Yeah.
Mm.
Awesome. Mwah.
Thank
Till next
you.
time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.